How do you actually create content that makes sales? It's probably a question that I've got over and over again over the years. I know I sure asked it myself when I first started creating content when I was new to the game. So I wanted to shoot you guys a quick little video, kind of break down some of the things that you really need to understand about building a business through content creation. Maybe you're building a personal brand, maybe you're trying to sell your offers, maybe you're trying to launch offers, or you're just trying to dip your toes into the whole online business world. And content really, a lot of it can stem from creating content or having clarity around what you're going to create content about. So, fair warning, I'm not going to give you some copy and paste content strategy, a loophole that you guys can go use to explode your audience, because I actually lean more on the side of building very targeted, micro audiences that love to buy your products and are very connected to you through your stories, who you are as a human being, etc. So if you're looking for a, strategy that's going to help you generate 1 million followers of people that don't give a shit about you and probably won't buy your products, then this video probably won't be for you. But we will dive in. But before I do, I want to mention that the number one most important thing that you need to really create content from is yourself. And I know this sounds so cliche, it sounds so generic, but you have to understand that this is what people are buying. This is what people are buying long before they jump into your group or your program or your offer or even your inbox. They're a lot of the times they're buying into your lifestyle, your morals, your ethics, what you're doing, how you're doing things, and that is just as important as you talking about something that you have to sell. Now, a lot of the people in the market, myself included, I've done this for a copious amount of time, if that's the right terminology for it, is, we want to make sales, so we just hammer product. All we do is talk about our product. That's all we do. We just naturally talk about, oh, I have this kick-ass masterclass. I have this thing that could help you. I really want to help you do this. And a lot of our content ends up just becoming sterile, like a billboard. And the more that you actually end up doing this, it actually starts to repel more and more and more people because there is no human side of it. It's all just business. It's all just, I want to make money. It's all just, I want to sell you something, right? So if you don't take anything from this video, the one thing that I will leave you with, which not really leaving you because we just started the video, but is adopt a personal lens. Okay, like if you're posting 5 pieces of content a week, you could do 2 super personal pieces of content, life, who you are, what you're doing, passions, interests, hobbies. You could do 2, niche specific pieces of content, maybe a tactic or a tip, and then you can do 1 offer, right? Hey, I'm looking for 1 person that wants to do this with me, right? So that way you have a healthy balance of content versus it's all just buy, right? You have to have this ebb and flow of like giving and receiving, right? A good analogy for this is like you have to look at your audience that you're building like a bank, right? So a lot of people want to try to withdraw cash from this bank account that they haven't made any deposits into, right? It's like, hey, I want to sell right now. I want to sell products today. And it's like, you've never posted content before. It's going to be really hard for you to start selling right away. So you need to make those deposits by showing up in your content, giving some forms of value, sharing your story, who you are as a human, because that's realistically what people are going to be buying into. And they're kind of 2 separate things, right? You have your brand and who you are as a personal brand, and then you have what you're selling. It's 2 separate entities, and you kind of have to treat them as such. But I've been rambling for about 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So let's go ahead and pull up my screen. I'll run through this doc real quick. And yeah. Now I wanted to shoot this video specifically because content is probably one of the biggest hurdles for most people, right? And to give you guys a little bit of proof of concept, right? I've done over $1 million with 1 product with content creation, have helped students do millions of dollars with content creation. And I don't have a massive audience either, right? Like I think I only got 2,000 subscribers on YouTube and 30,000 on Facebook and TikTok. So I'm not a mega influencer, but I have done relatively well with content creation. And this will kind of play into that and show you guys the lens that you need to be starting to create content from. So intentionally creating content that converts, right? That's the goal for most. Emotions first. Like, think about the emotions of your consumer. This is probably one of the things that took me a really long time to understand about content creation. Is I was just writing and posting willy-nilly with no real intention or clarity behind why I was actually putting that piece of content on the internet. So, what connection do I want to create out of this piece of content? What do I want the reader to feel from this? What do I want the watcher to feel from this? How will that allow them to connect with me, right? Am I trying to create relatability, pain, struggle, outcome, or inspiration? Okay, think about the emotions before you post content. What do you want somebody to get from actually consuming that content, right? Like you got it's kind of a paradox, because you're creating content to talk about yourself and create connection, but the content also has to be about the consumer, right? This is one of the biggest hurdles that we've seen for a lot of our clients who, want to get people into their group. And when it's very easy when they're first starting, it's like, hey, I posted content, and it's like, join my community. Okay, but why should I join your group? What am I going to get out of joining your community? Right? Some type of emotion or clarity around what the consumer is going to get. And you can emulate this with everything, right? It doesn't have to just necessarily just be a community. It could be, why should I put my email in on this landing page to get this ebook? Why should I drop a comment on your post to get, start a conversation with you about this offer? What is in it for them? If you can answer that question in your content, you'll do a lot better. Okay, so creating some core stories. This is a really powerful one that a lot of people completely overlook, but it can be very powerful, right? Bits and pieces of stories that can be hammered on repeat to create relatability, highlight pain, and showcase expertise. Now, to give you guys 3 different examples of people that do this over and over and over again, if you look at Gary V's always talking about, how he built his parents' wine company and, basically started over at 30 with absolutely nothing, right? To create inspiration. But it's also part of his brand and his congruency, because it's like, hey, it's never too late to start, right? Then you got Russell Brunson talking about the potato gun story. And then it's all congruent with what he's actually selling, right? It's like, hey, I've learned the power of this funnel strategy when ads started getting more expensive, and then I figured out how to add order bumps and sell this and do all this. Or you got Alex Hormozi talking about sleeping on the gym floor and, putting in all this work and the unglamorized side of business, because he wants real business owners to be making buckets of money so he can invest in their companies, right? So think about your own core stories that you could kind of repeat, right? That would create relatability in your content, create backstory, create potential pain agitation. If you're agitating some type of pain that your audience is struggling with, or a pain that you had that you fixed in your life or business, is something that you can repeat over and over and over again, right? So I'll give you some examples of my own core stories that I've created, okay? How I knew I was meant for a different life when I was working overtime on my daughter's first Easter, and my mom sent me a picture of my daughter in an Easter basket, causing me to have a mixed internal questions, like, why was I sacrificing moments that in my life for a fucking job that I hated, right? This isn't I totally butchered me reading that. So this is a real story, right? Like, that's kind of when I realized I wanted to start doing something different with my life, because, I was working at this plastic company at the time, and it was my daughter's first Easter, and they went and did this thing, and I was working this mandatory overtime, and I just had like these questions inside, like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm missing my daughter's first Easter, a moment that I'm never going to get back, to work at this job that I fucking literally hate. But it made me miserable, right? So, okay, how I knew I needed to build a different type of online business was the internal challenge of not being where I wanted to be. Found myself not being present in my life because I needed to be building my business. Now, this is a very bad habit that I had when I first started my online business, because, I was sold on this notion that everything was going to be quick, easy, that I needed to make all this money really fast. And I had a really hard time disconnecting from my business, right? So me and my daughter would always ride bikes to this park that was probably 3 or 4 blocks from my house, and there was these little ponies there, and then we would feed them these carrots and stuff. And I would always catch myself like stressing that I was, building this business to be free, but I wasn't actually free because I was like inside of my head and living in guilt that I'm not making 100 grand yet. I'm not making $20,000 a month yet. I should be building my business. Like I shouldn't be at this park hanging out with my daughter. So realistically, it's all about anchoring back your reasons why, right? Like that's genuinely the reason why I started my business, is because I wanted the freedoms to do whatever I want with my daughter, but I also wanted to set her up in a different circumstance than I had when I was an adult, right? So another example why the first 3 years of my online journey were the most challenging: following everyone blindly, doing every strategy, buy every course, right? That's literally what I did for 3 years. I constantly hopped around. I was listening to 18 different people. I was trying to do YouTube ads, funnels, landing pages, organic. I was doing so many different things in my business, and I didn't have results because of it, because I was spread extremely thin with no internal clarity around what I actually wanted to build. And then core stories around lessons I started to have when I started having success, or lessons and breakthroughs that came from that. Right? It was the weirdest thing. I came from a minimum wage job, working full time, making $31,000 a year. And then, I go to having an online business that does, we have $30,000 a month in recurring income, right? So like our months are starting every month with $30,000 locked in, or like helping, the imposter syndrome that came about, helping our students cross $3 million in track sales when I'm just a fucking regular dude who didn't even graduate high school. I went to a trade school. So all of the internal things that grew, or, roadblocks that came from, actually having success, right? Like what actually happens internally, right? I bought this brand new house that I would have never been able to afford if I didn't have an online business, right? I used all my fake internet money to buy this brand new home. Client stories, dive deep into client stories, client examples. Now, obviously this is only, relevant if you have client stories or examples. If you don't have clients yet, then you don't have to do that. But you can also use community stories of other people inside. Like if you're in a community and you make friends with somebody, or you like their backstory and that's why they resonated with you, it's a really powerful journey, right? A lot of our clients, even to this day, like when we onboard new coaching clients, it's like, hey, what made you buy? And it's like, oh, well, I've been in your group for a really long time, and I just saw a lot of myself in your guys' story. I've been trying to do this thing for the last couple years. I'm struggling. I'm not getting any results. I'm not making any money. And like, you guys found a way to do it. So I want to connect with you guys, right? Because you guys started making it work after, years of struggling. It's not a marketing tactic. I literally showed up for 3 years in my business and was consistent and made $65. Right? Which kind of rolls into the next one. How I made $65 after 3 years of showing up consistently in my business. And then how I started doing less and had my first $1,000 day in 8 days. Right? This was one of my biggest lessons of all time. It was when I was working a full-time job. This was right around COVID. And I was working for this vitamin company that did like melatonin, prenatals, and all that type of stuff. And, they were working us like crazy because COVID, and everybody's like, oh, buy all the vitamin C. So I was working all these crazy hours. And I remember I jumped into a $15,000 a month, $15,000 a year membership, like a coaching mastermind. And the person asked me, they were like, hey, we're going to get on a one-on-one call, and I want to map out your business and our time together over the next 12 months. And, I came to the table and I was like, he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm working a full-time job right now. I'm posting content on my Facebook profile, my Facebook group. I'm doing TikToks. I'm doing YouTube videos. I'm doing blog posts. And he's like, looks at me and he says like, okay, well, what one of these things do you want to do? Out of all of this that you're doing, one thing. And I said, I want to grow my group. He said, that's all you need to do then for the next 12 months. Okay. That's the year I went from practically zero results the year prior to making my first 6 figures, simply just using my Facebook profile, my own community, and one offer, which was sold via Google Docs. But this was a big lesson because I started doing a lot less in my business. I canceled all my funnels, all my automations. I stopped publishing YouTube videos. You guys could even look on my track record on YouTube. There was a very long gap, probably almost 2 years, that I did not create content because I was just had my blinders on and super focused on doing like 2 or 3 things in my business and improving on those things, right? It wasn't like I started doing them and it was just, everything just clicked and magically made a bunch of money. It was like, this was the goal. I wanted to grow my group and I wanted to focus on that. So everything in my business led back to that. And that's all I did. It's all I continued to do. And it's still at its core what we do to this day. But that's a lot of really big lessons in that, right? Because it's very prevalent, especially in the era that we're in right now with the online business space, is like everybody has 18 different offers and, they're creating content on 75 different social media platforms and they're all over the place. Maybe one day they're selling this product with a call and the next day they're selling something else with not a call. And it just creates lack of clarity internally, which then makes everything else harder, right? So if you guys haven't got clear on your process, your plan, I would highly encourage you guys to maybe like map it out on a piece of paper or something. It definitely helps to have the visual representation. But that's the year everything changed for me, which was 2021 was my breakout year where I was struggling for years prior. And that's the year that I got very lean and very simple and then stopped doing all the other stuff. And then obviously as time has gone on, we've added other pieces and other elements and, landing pages and stuff like that. But that just goes with the process, right? It's not like that's where I had my success initially from. Right? The goal of your story is to pull people closer to you and create connection and authority because you had a similar challenge, lifestyle, and roadblock that you overcame, as well as repel people that aren't like you. It's just as important to use your content to repel people that aren't your vibe, right? Like it's no mystery that Nate is inappropriate. I wear funny t-shirts. I have a foul mouth. I'm not serious 99% of the time. So I 100% use that in my content because I don't want to ruin the customer's experience if I'm all professional and, very articulate. Like I stumble all over my words all the time. You'd think I'd be better at it. I've done thousands of videos at this point. If somebody purchases from me on this notion of me being this prim and proper professional person, and then they purchase and I'm dropping F-bombs and I got a t-shirt with, something inappropriate on it, they're going to be immediately turned off, right? So be yourself in your content, which I know is easier said than done, right? I'm not saying you got to get out there and you got to share all your skeletons in your closet and all that stuff, but like creating some core stories around, backstory, context, etc., that will connect you to your audience. But don't be afraid to like share opinions, views, stances, or, just personality traits that you personally have that could turn people off. Because what actually ends up happening is more often than not, when somebody purchases something from you in your offers and your products, at least a lot of times for a lot of our clients, is naturally you guys get closer, right? So you don't want to like put on a fake front on the internet to pretend to be somebody that you're not, because then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot for any opportunity for like repeat business or long-term customers, right? Because they're going to feel duped, right? So the pre-content questions, okay? The hook, the what, hook, the promise, catching people's attention and giving them a reason to stick around. This is like a structure for your actual piece of content. The why, create the understanding of why this is important to them. Either what will happen if they do or don't do this. Can be negative or positive. Okay, going as deep as fucking possible in this area with your stories. Okay, because you're going to speak to the emotional side of the brain versus logical side of the brain. It's why people make decisions a lot of the times, right? Going to specific onto certain buckets and creating core stories that allow your audience to quickly create a connection, reference point as to how you got to where you are and who you are, mainly to create relatability. That's the goal of your content. You want you want someone who consumes your content to see a little bit of you, see a little bit of themselves in you, right? Obviously, they're going to be seeing you in your content. They're going to see that you want them to see themselves in your stories, right? So facts tell, stories sell, okay? How to structure, how in the structure, the bulk of the content. Get as lean as fuck around how you create content and tactics that you're giving to folks in your world. Does it have to be 3 steps, or could it be 2? Okay, give them the core essentials and nothing else. The minimum number of things that you could give someone to help them have success with your thing. This is huge in the market right now. Everybody's like, oh, I have a program with, 786 videos. It's a one-stop shop. It's not sexy. Okay? Like, help them fix one micro problem that they have, right? One micro problem. You could do one micro problem, right? And let's say you talk about that for the next 30 days. You could pull the second micro problem from the same offer and talk about that for 30 days, right? Get specific, right? That's going to be crucial, especially if you want smooth sales. If you're very broad and bland in your content, you're going to have a hard time getting it to perform, but also you're going to have a hard time selling, right? If somebody has consumed more content, they know what you do, they know who you are, they know how you help, they know what you don't help with, it makes the sales process, when they do come into your sales process, really short and very low pressure and easy, versus if your content is very bland and broad, help you make $15,000 a day with an automated business. There's a lot of room for interpretation, so it's actually going to make your sales processes really difficult, right? You're going to have 75 questions you have to answer. You're going to have, objections and all this type of stuff. So get specific in your content, right? While making it about your core stories and what they're going to get, okay? The end goal for the audience, okay? What do you want folks in your world to accomplish by getting this piece of content from you? Is it a tactical win that will help them get to XYZ? Is it an emotional connection that will make them feel inspired by a story you told, right? Is it to build interest around an offer that you have, right? And these are some really cool pain points to think about. It's about them. I know I mentioned that it's a paradox of content, because you're creating content about yourself, but it has to be about the actual consumer, right? So these are just 4 principles that you need to think about when it comes to creating content. You can emulate this in, your written content, if you're writing content, or in your video content. And that's all I got for you guys today. A little bit of a ramble, a little bit of some stories and stuff like that sprinkled in there. I will go ahead and just leave the resource below this video. That way you guys can grab it. And you guys have a kick-ass Monday.